Get to some breaking news now coming into us here in Washington. We told you at the top of the show about Congressman Eric Swalwell under deep and intense pressure to step down after sexual misconduct allegations against him. He is now, in a statement that was posted literally in maybe the last 90 seconds, as we're getting our Hill team to a camera here, saying he is now apparently going to resign from Congress. I want to read you this statement here coming in from Eric Swalwell, again, Democrat from California. He had already dropped out of the governor's race in that state, now apparently stepping down from his seat. He says he plans to resign his seat in Congress. I think our team has turned this around. We'll be able to show you some of what he said. And in part of this statement, 3 paragraphs just about, he says, I must take responsibility and ownerships for the mistakes I did make. He says he is aware of those efforts to bring an immediate expulsion vote against him and other members. Now, we talked about this earlier in the show. That is an effort that some, even in his own party, had been promoting. Swalwell says that expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong, but he says it is also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, he says, I plan to resign my seat in Congress. He goes on to say that he's going to work with his staff to serve the needs of the people of the 14th Congressional District. He also apologizes at the top of the statement to what he calls mistakes in judgment, and says, as he had said earlier, you see the statement here, that he will fight the serious and false allegations against him. This is the statement here. He says he will take responsibility and ownerships for the mistakes that he did make. I'm going to ask our team. I know that both Ryan Nobles and Mel Zanona were scrambling back over on Capitol here. I don't know if we have either one of them with us now. Not yet. We're going to come back to this story as soon as we get them. But keep in mind that this had come now after building pressure from, again, not just Republicans, but Democrats as well. The House Ethics Committee had opened an investigation, and we're planning to pursue an investigation into these allegations against Swalwell as well. This is something that we have seen just recently on the Republican side of the aisle as it related to Congressman Tony Gonzalez and the sexual misconduct allegation against him as well, including one that ended with a staffer dying by suicide, same staffer that made the allegation. We obviously don't know of any causal connection. But as far as Congressman Swalwell here, you can see he is stepping down from Congress. So a significant move from somebody who had been one of the more prominent voices, obviously, in the state of California, had thrown his hat in the ring in that contested governor's race there, somebody who has made frequent appearances, of course, as it relates to, media appearances, talking about Democratic priorities and policies, too. Mel Zanona has made her way now to the camera there on the Hill. It's a Monday at 5:30 p.m. The House is just coming back from a 2-week recess, Mel, and now you have this significant news. Mel Zanona, I think we can hear if you have us about Congressman Swalwell. Do we have you?
Yeah, can you hear me, Hallie?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Hey, I am on Capitol Hill right now. We just got this news in, obviously, from the congressman that he is resigning. It comes after these allegations that were made, these sexual assault allegations that were made by multiple women to both the San Francisco Chronicle and to CNN. After that came out, he did spend the weekend and then decided yesterday to drop his campaign for governor. But there was still this big question of whether he was going to remain a member of Congress. And he was facing increasing calls, not just from Republicans, but also from Democrats to resign his seat, or else they said they were going to vote to expel him. We were expecting an expulsion resolution to potentially come up as early as this week. That is a really high bar. It's a 2/3 majority in order to succeed. But the type of members that were calling on him to resign were quite notable. It was members of his own California delegation. And then most recently, Senator Ruben Gallego. He's from Arizona, but he is one of the congressman's closest allies and best friends on Capitol Hill and just on a personal level. And he came out with a statement saying, this is not the person I thought he was. He deserves to resign. He deserves to be expelled. We also got news today that there was going to be a House Ethics Committee investigation. When you're no longer a member of Congress, though, Hallie, that investigation goes completely away. So that will no longer be something that is active on Capitol Hill. But he is still facing a potential criminal investigation in Manhattan because New York is where one of those alleged sexual assaults occurred. The Manhattan DA did announce it is investigating Eric Swalwell. So his legal trouble is not going away, but for now, no longer a member of Congress, no longer facing a House Ethics Committee investigation.
Mel, can I ask you a couple of clarification follow-up questions? We may not know the answer to some of this. Do we know, as far as I can see in this statement, he says that he plans to resign. Do we know when? Is that effective immediately? Do we know if there's a timeline on that? Any idea?
Yeah, that's something we're still trying to figure out ourselves.
Okay.
He would have to go to the floor and kind of like make a formal announcement. It does appear, though, in that statement, just sort of reading between the lines here, that he wants to make sure his staff is in an okay position before he resigns. Some of them had even put out a remarkable statement saying our continued presence working for him does not signal support. Some of these people are junior members, can't really afford to just leave the office without a paycheck. So I think that's something that's still being sorted out. But in terms of when this will impact the margins, it will have to be made as an official announcement on the House floor to actually hold. And
then at that point, again, I may be too in the weeds here, I assume special election in California to replace him?
Yeah, there will be a special election at some point. That, again, is also unclear. It would be up to the governor to determine that. There's a little less flexibility in California than some of these other states where members are also facing calls to be expelled, like Tony Gonzalez, for example, who admitted to having an affair with a staffer. And that's, Hallie, another question is, now that Eric Swalwell is resigning, will some of these other members still face the pressure to resign or be expelled? That's something else we're watching very closely this week.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.